My name's Adam. I'm 31 years old, and I guess you could say I've always had a complicated relationship with my mom. Complicated in the sense that I've spent most of my adult life trying to earn a version of love that I don't think ever really existed for me. I'm not sure exactly when I became the lesser child. Maybe it was gradual, like erosion. 1,000 tiny paper cuts that eventually left something hollow behind. Or maybe it was always there, and I just didn't want to believe it. My younger sister, Chloe, 3 years my junior, has always been the golden one. Ever since we were kids, she's been the one to get the praise, the hugs, the benefit of the doubt. I'd get the lectures, the disappointment, the silence. But despite all that, I still kept trying. I told myself that one day, I'd finally do something big enough to make her see me. I've done all right for myself. I work in tech, built my way up from an unpaid internship to a six-figure salary over the last decade. I don't flaunt it. I've always been the kind of guy who keeps his head down and lets the work speak. But last month, I got a huge bonus, more than I'd ever gotten before. And after paying off the last of my own student loans and putting some aside for savings, I had a chunk left over. And for some reason, despite everything, I thought of my mom. She's been living in the same crumbling two-bedroom house for 25 years. Roof leaks in the spring, furnace dies every third winter, and the porch is so tilted it looks like it's about to give up. She's always dreamed of something better, but money's always been tight. And I thought, maybe this is the moment. Maybe if I hand her the down payment for her dream house, no strings attached, maybe that'll be the gesture that finally matters. So I planned the whole thing. Quietly, I got in touch with a real estate agent in her area. Found a beautiful place just outside town. Modern kitchen, a little garden out back, and best of all, one story, so she wouldn't have to worry about stairs as she got older. I put a hold on it with the agent and made sure everything was lined up. The check for the down payment, $45,000, was already in an envelope in my backpack. I even had a little speech rehearsed in my head. I was going to show up on Saturday morning, take her for coffee, and tell her she didn't have to worry about repairs or mortgages anymore. That she deserved something nice. I wanted to see the look on her face when she realized that I had done that for her. That maybe, finally, I'd be enough. I drove through the night, 12 hours on the road from my apartment in the city to the town I grew up in. Got in around 9 a.m., bleary-eyed but buzzing with anticipation. When I pulled into the driveway, her car was already there, and so was Chloe's. That gave me pause. I hadn't told anyone I was coming, but of course Chloe just happened to be visiting the same weekend. I parked behind them and grabbed my bag, the check inside feeling like it was burning a hole in the fabric. As I walked up the familiar path to the front door, I heard voices and laughter from inside. I knocked gently. A few seconds later, the door swung open, and there she was. But she didn't look at me. Not at first. She looked past me, behind me, like she expected someone else. Then her eyes landed on mine, and she gave a small, surprised, "Oh," like she'd just seen a neighbor she barely remembered. Before I could say a word, Chloe came bounding from the kitchen, arms open, practically glowing. "Mom, I told you he'd come," she squealed, throwing her arms around me in a quick hug, but then immediately stepping aside as our mother moved forward, straight past me, and wrapped Chloe in a hug so tight, you'd think she'd just come home from war. "My sweet girl," my mom whispered, stroking Chloe's hair. "I'm so glad you're here. You always make everything better." I stood there, bag in hand, mouth slightly open. And then came the moment that made my stomach flip. My mom turned to me finally, smiled politely, and said, "Adam, since you're here, maybe you could help Chloe go over the repair list." I wrote down everything that needs to be done around here. Pipes, the roof, the porch. Maybe you can help pitch in, since your sister's already offered. I didn't say anything. Not right away. I just nodded slowly and followed them inside. Chloe plopped down on the couch like she owned the place, flipping through some bridal magazine she'd brought with her. She was engaged again, and from the way my mom doted on her, you'd think she was royalty. They chatted about venues, flowers, how Chloe's fiancé just got a raise, how she's thinking about moving to the city to finally start taking herself seriously. And my mom just beamed through it all like Chloe had personally invented the sun. I sat quietly on the armrest of the recliner, gripping the strap of my bag like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to the floor. The envelope with the check was still inside. My little speech about the house, the surprise, the relief I wanted to give her, it all sat there, growing heavier with each passing minute. I thought maybe there would be a moment, a pause, a chance to pull my mom aside and say, "Hey, I came here for you." But that moment never came. Instead, after lunch, my mom pulled out a legal pad with a list of home repairs, columned out with prices. "I added estimates," she said brightly, handing it to me like it was a birthday card. "You're so good with finances. Maybe you can cover some of these?" Chloe's already offered to get the new washing machine. I looked down at the list. The total was nearly $10,000. And there wasn't a single word of gratitude in her tone, just expectation, like she was reading off a grocery list. That's when I knew. I knew the check wasn't going to her. Not anymore. I calmly folded the paper, slipped it back on the table, and stood up. Chloe didn't notice. I don't even think she looked up from her phone. But my mom did. "You're not going already, are you?" she asked, frowning. "You just got here." "I've got some stuff to take care of," I said quietly. "Just wanted to check in." She waved absently, already turning back to Chloe. "All right. Be sure to say goodbye before you go." I left the house without another word. Got in my car, drove 5 blocks, and parked in an empty lot. Just sat there for almost an hour, letting the weight of everything settle in. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just felt tired. Tired of proving myself to someone who never really saw me. Tired of trying to earn a love that always seemed reserved for someone else. I opened the bag, took out the envelope with the $45,000 check, and stared at it. Then I picked up my phone and called the realtor. "Hey," I said. "Yeah, can you go ahead and cancel the deal?" Something came up. That was 3 days ago. This morning, my phone buzzed. A message from my mom. "Hey, do you know why the realtor backed out? I thought we were still moving forward. Chloe told me you were handling it." I stared at the message for a long while before I finally responded. "Ask Chloe." And then I put my phone face down. The message sat there unread for almost an hour. Then it got marked as seen, but no reply came. I half expected a barrage of calls or at least a guilt-tripping follow-up, but there was nothing. Just silence. And strangely, that silence felt louder than anything she could have said. It confirmed what I think I already knew. This wasn't about disappointment. It wasn't even about confusion. It was about control, about expectation, about a mother who saw one child as her legacy and the other as her labor. By the afternoon, Chloe called me. Twice. I didn't pick up. Then a third time. When I finally answered, I didn't say anything. Just let the line hang until she spoke. "Hey," she said, her voice just a little too light. "So, Mom's kind of freaking out." I didn't respond. I could hear the TV in the background on her end. She was probably still at Mom's house, lounging on the couch like always. "She said the realtor canceled the whole house thing? And that it had something to do with you?" There was a pause. "You were going to buy her a new house? Since when?" "Since a few weeks ago," I said flatly. "Before you handed me a repair bill like I was her handyman." There was a beat of silence. Then she laughed, soft, incredulous. "Wait, are you serious? That's what this is about." I didn't say anything. "Adam," she said, switching to that faux calming voice she always used when trying to sound reasonable while still being wildly condescending. "Come on. You know how Mom is. She didn't mean anything by it. You're just sensitive." I clenched my jaw. That word. Sensitive. The one they always used to explain away how I felt when they crossed a line. The label slapped on me since I was 10 years old and cried when Mom forgot my birthday but threw Chloe a whole garden party 2 months later. "You don't get it," I said finally. "You've never had to get it. You've always been first. Always been right. Always been the one she's proud of. I've spent years trying to prove I was worth something to her, and the one time I actually could have given her everything she ever wanted, she handed me a to-do list like I was the repair guy." "That's not fair," Chloe shot back. "She's old. She's stressed. She's been through a lot." "We all have," I cut in. "But she doesn't treat you like a wallet. She brags about you. She lights up when you walk into the room. When it's me, she looks like she's waiting for me to say something wrong. Like she's tolerating me." "Adam, I'm not doing it anymore," I said. "I'm done trying." I drove 500 miles with a check that could have changed her life. She didn't even ask why I was there. There was another long silence. Then, more quietly, "So what happens now?" "I don't know," I said. "But I'm not the one who has to figure it out anymore." I hung up. Later that evening, I got a message from my mom. Not a call. Not a voicemail. Just a short text. Did I do something wrong? That question, somehow, broke something in me. Not because she asked it, but because I knew she didn't actually want the answer. It wasn't a genuine moment of self-reflection. It was a deflection, a bid for sympathy, a subtle way to make me feel like I was the one overreacting, like I'd taken things the wrong way. Again, I didn't answer. Instead, I took the check and shredded it. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like I was making a decision for myself, not for her approval, not for her affection, not to be enough. Just for me. I booked a flight back instead of driving, left the car in long-term parking, and checked into a hotel for the night before the flight. I needed space, not just physical distance, but emotional room to breathe. That night, as I lay in bed, I scrolled through old photos. One caught my eye, me at 7 years old, standing next to Chloe at her birthday party. She had a huge cake, a new dress, and a crown. I had a paper plate and an awkward smile. I don't even remember if I got a slice. I stared at that photo for a long time. And then, I blocked both of them. Not because I was angry, but because I was tired of begging to be seen. And because sometimes, the best kind of peace comes when you stop knocking on the same locked door. The next few weeks passed in a strange, suspended calm. My phone was eerily quiet. No texts, no voicemails, no, just checking in messages from my mom or Chloe. At first, I thought maybe they were giving me space, but deep down, I knew better. It wasn't space. It was silence as a strategy. The cold shoulder dressed up as dignity. I knew how my family worked. If you didn't play your role, you got written out of the script. And since I wasn't being the generous, obedient son anymore, I guess they decided to hit pause until I came crawling back. Again. But I didn't crawl back. I didn't even flinch. Instead, I went back to work. I buried myself in projects, picked up a side contract, started hitting the gym again. Little things to remind myself that my life wasn't tethered to their approval. Still, some nights, it would hit me out of nowhere, this dull ache in my chest, like grief, but without the death. Like I was mourning a version of family that never really existed, except in my head. Then, out of nowhere, I got a Facebook notification. Chloe had tagged me in a post, which was weird because I'd muted her ages ago, and especially weird considering I had blocked her number. But apparently, she was still able to tag me on social media. The post was a picture of her and my mom standing in front of the old house, both beaming like they just won the lottery. The caption read, "Making memories in the home that built us. Nothing like a little elbow grease and family teamwork to make it shine again." I stared at it for a long time. The comments were pouring in. Distant cousins, high school friends, family friends I hadn't heard from in years, all leaving glowing replies. "So sweet. Love to see you all working together. Your brother is such a good man for stepping up to help your mom." And then came the kicker. A comment from Chloe herself, replying to someone who asked if the repairs were going okay. Yep. Adam was so generous. He covered most of it. Mom's finally feeling hopeful again. I felt the blood rush to my face. My hands clenched without meaning to. I hadn't given them a dime. Not one. And yet, here they were, publicly crafting this fairy tale where I was the dutiful son, the silent benefactor, the dependable background character in Chloe's happily ever after. The comments just kept coming. People praising them for their strength, their bond, their love as mother and daughter. And me? I was just a name being dragged through the story as the convenient, silent donor. The problem wasn't just the lie. It was the complete rewriting of reality. I had walked away. They ignored it. They filled in the blank space with whatever version of me suited their image. And then, just as I was about to log off, I noticed something else. The realtor I'd worked with? She had posted a public story on her own page a few days prior, something about clients who waste your time, back out at the last second, then vanish without even a thank you. She didn't name names. But she didn't need to. One of the replies underneath said, "I bet you were dealing with the Martins family. Total nightmare." She liked it. I sat there, jaw tightening. So that's how it was. Not only had they turned me into the scapegoat in private, but now they were letting others believe I was the flaky, selfish one who backed out of helping them. I wasn't just being erased. I was being rebranded. And here's the part that hit hardest. That house? The dream house I had picked for my mom? The one I was ready to put $45,000 down on? It had sold. The listing was gone. Someone else had moved in. I checked the date. It had gone off the market just 5 days after I canceled the deposit. She could have had it. She could have had everything. But instead, she'd turned me into a villain to protect her pride. I closed my laptop and just sat there. It wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about what it represented. An attempt, maybe the last one, to show her that I mattered. That I saw her, cared about her, wanted to build something better. But instead of gratitude, I got rewritten. And I wasn't going to let that stand. Not this time. I didn't post a rebuttal. I didn't comment or message Chloe or call my mom to yell. No, I was done playing defense. I opened a new document and started typing something I'd never dared to write before. Something public. Something they wouldn't be able to brush off, ignore, or quietly twist behind my back. Because if they wanted to use my name to make themselves look good, then they were going to have to deal with what came next. So I wrote it. Not out of spite. Not for drama. I wrote it for clarity. For truth. For all the times I'd been gaslit into thinking I was too sensitive or imagining things. I wrote it to finally put everything in the open, not just for others to see, but for myself. It started as a simple status post on Facebook, but it quickly turned into something longer, more honest than I expected. I didn't write it to be petty. I didn't name call. I just told the story, plainly and quietly. 3 weeks ago, I drove 500 miles to surprise my mom with a down payment for her dream home. I had it all arranged. Found a house. Had the check written. All I wanted was to see her happy. Instead, she handed me a list of repairs for her current home, said nothing about why I was really there, and asked me to help, like Chloe already had. So I put the check back in my bag and left. I canceled the offer on the house. Since then, I've watched people post about how grateful they are, how family always comes through. But I didn't come through. I walked away, and I won't be guilted into silence for that decision anymore. Sometimes, walking away from people who never see you is the most loving thing you can do for yourself. I hit post. Within the hour, my inbox exploded. The first message came from my cousin Daniel, someone I hadn't talked to in years. Dude, I had no idea, he wrote. I always thought your mom was tough on you, but this is insane. Then came Aunt Melanie, mom's older sister. I'm ashamed to say I saw it, but never spoke up. You deserved better, Adam. Then friends, old high school classmates, even a few coworkers who had seen me push myself so hard over the years. One by one, they all replied with some variation of the same message. I get it now. But the message I expected the most, the one I braced for, came that evening. It was a text from Chloe. No emoji, no exclamation points. Just one cold sentence. You made mom cry. Hope it was worth it. I stared at it for a while, then typed back, I hope she reflects on why. Then I blocked her. For good. The next morning, I woke up to see my post had been shared over 700 times. A few local friends had even tagged the realtor I'd originally worked with, adding their own stories about my mom's behavior over the years, things I hadn't even known. Turns out, I wasn't the only one she'd mistreated. She just had a long pattern of using people until they stopped being useful. I thought I'd feel vindicated. But what I felt was peace. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need a dramatic showdown or teary apology. What I needed was to stop giving people a front row seat to my life when all they ever did was throw tomatoes at the stage. A few days later, I received a letter in the mail. Handwritten. From my mom. It wasn't long. Just one page. Mostly vague statements about how she was hurt by the way I chose to handle things. No real ownership. No apology. Just a paragraph of self-pity wrapped in flowery language. But at the bottom, in a different pen, clearly written later, was a single sentence that felt raw and unedited. You were never supposed to stop trying. I stared at that sentence for a long time. That's when it all clicked. That's what I'd been to her. Not a son. Not a man with boundaries. I was a project. A performer. Someone expected to keep knocking, no matter how many times the door didn't open. And when I finally stopped, that was the betrayal. Not the house, not the check, not the post. It was the act of choosing myself. I folded the letter and burned it in the sink. No rage. No theatrics. Just finality. 2 months later, I bought a new home. For me. No big yard. No open floor plan. Just a quiet, well-lit condo near the lake, with a balcony big enough for a grill and a chair where I could sit on weekends and read. I started seeing a therapist. I learned to enjoy silence that didn't feel like punishment. I even adopted a dog, a lazy, affectionate golden retriever who greets me like a hero every time I walk through the door. Sometimes, when people ask if I'm close with my family, I say, we used to be, in a way. And then I change the subject. Not because it hurts, but because I've finally accepted that you don't owe your peace to people who made you earn their love like a paycheck. Some doors don't need to be knocked on again. Some stories don't need rewrites. And some sons learned that being enough was never the problem, being seen was.